Will you please welcome to the stage Mr. Tom Hiddleston?
Thank you very much. How are you? It's very nice to see you here. You sound good.
Let's cut to it. We were just told that you know everything about the next Avengers that you're not supposed to tell us, so you've had a drink. I made sure you did. It's true.
It's true.
Yeah, so when do you start actually getting behind that? Because I know you've got a Muppet movie to finish, don't you?
I am in the Muppet movie for the smallest amount of time, but I did have fun with Kermit the Frog. Yeah. It was a sentence I thought I'd never say. I know absolutely nothing about Avengers 2. I don't know where that came from. I just know that I'm not in it, sadly. It's the age of Ultron,
spoiler.
man. It's not the age of Loki. Yeah. Ultron is the man or the machine or whatever he is who's going to take the Avengers to task.
Well, we're going to get back to all of that wonderful Marvel stuff in a second, but
Yeah.
first I want to go into your life and into your world, into your background. Well, you might not be aware of some of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen, but you were boarding at Eton, very young age. Yep. You studied classics at Cambridge, where you earned double first-class honours. So you're a bit of a smarty. Then you graduated from RADA and then became this worldwide phenomenon through the Marvel universe. Yep. Really, that's what went, oh my God, who's that guy? Seriously, when Avengers first comes, I said, well, what's that? Then you're back into the Muppets, so it's another career high. But it's an exotic ride, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, life would be boring if it was all the same, wouldn't it?
You're only 32.
I am only 32.
So
Yes.
much has happened.
So much has happened. Feel ancient. What can I say? You know, it's funny how your life, anyone's life, all of our lives, I guess you feel kind of ordinary when you're inside it, and you can't see how it differs from other people. But it has been a ride, I have to say, and sometimes. A lot of the time as an actor, you have to pay attention to what's in front of you, otherwise you don't do your job properly. And then occasionally I get these kind of bird's eye view moments where I look at my life and think, what the hell happened there? You know, there's a line in that Talking Heads song, Once in a Lifetime, which is, how did I get here? It's a question I might ask myself tonight, actually. Standing in front of an image of myself with long black hair, which I wasn't born with.
When do those moments arise more than others, where you actually go, hang on, I'm not sure, is this real?
Yeah, I think it's just, you get like these little moments where something will happen which will just make you realize of your extraordinary good fortune. I can't think of any of them right now, but I don't know. Like, I recently did an interview with a magazine in London, and somebody it just came out. So somebody had called Samuel L. Jackson to ask for his opinion on me as an actor, and he said the most generous and sweet things. And I read a quote about me by him in a magazine. I thought, what the fuck? What is this? Like, I remember when I was a kid and I grew up watching Samuel L. Jackson, the man, the myth, the legend, being the great actor that he is, and suddenly I've worked with him and I know him, and we email each other, and that was when I was like, hang on, this is a little different to how I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
But thrilling. I should be so lucky.
It's a different ballgame from where you started off in the idea of slight academia, but what drew you to the idea of the classics in literature and in art, and why did you study such a specific yet deep genre of study?
Simply because I was good at it. I think that's what you do when you're a kid. Is you do what you're good at. And I have no idea why I was good at reading ancient Greek. I just was. Some people are good at maths, and some people are good at running, and I was good at Greek. But I did love it. And there was something about, which is sort of pertinent to this occasion, which is I genuinely loved the stories. And, the Greek epics and their Roman inheritors are full of gods and monsters, and these huge stories of tragedy and fallibility and philosophy, and that was the thrill for me. Was kind of reading about this ancient civilization who seemed to live at a deeper, louder pitch than I did, and I found that very thrilling, and always have actually. I kind of tend to bring that to bear on everything I do. I love big shapes, where huge characters rise and fall. So I guess somehow it feeds into the mix.
And then how did the acting blend into this?
Did
you want to be one of them? Do you want to be one of those louder-than-life characters?
I always did it. I remember my first school play when I was 6 years old. I played Toad of Toad Hall in The Wind in the Willows. It was a showstopper. I sang a song about the car horn, because he drives loads of cars. I can still remember it. And then I was always in school plays, and I always did. Weirdly, I always did impressions. I was always trying to make my sisters and my cousins laugh, and then I was once in a thing. There was a thing at school called a balloon debate, and the conceit is that there are 12 people traveling across the Atlantic in a balloon, and it's going down over the ocean, and you have to give a speech as to why you should stay in the balloon to the audience. Which is allegedly supposed to hone your debating skills, but just gave me a chance to do loads of impressions. And the guy, I must have been 13 at the time, and the head of drama saw it and was like, "Have you ever thought about acting? Do you want to be in the school play?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I kind of got the bargain. After that, I was not to be stopped. So there we go. That's how I got into it.
Is it more about performance or losing yourself in somebody else?
Initially, it was definitely about performance. It was about making people laugh and entertaining people. And then, of course, as a teenager, your life becomes a lot more complex, and your curiosity about things changes, and you become interested in the complexity and the ambiguity of things. And actually, at school, I find at most schools in the world, that kind of curiosity isn't indulged to its fullest degree, because they want you to behave and sit down, behave, do your homework, back in your box. And doing plays, it was like it was sanctioned. You know what I mean? I could play all these amazing parts and kind of play lovers and sons and grandfathers and all these kind of different stories, and shout and scream and rage and laugh and cry, and everyone would say, "Wow, that's amazing," as opposed to "Shut up, sit down, do your homework, get back in your box." Yeah. So it's kind of both. It's a way of exploring life in another, in someone else's shoes, and also entertaining people, of course.
So how does that figure into you choosing the roles that? I mean, no doubt there are a fair few scripts coming in your direction of late.
It's been very nice.
Yeah. I can imagine. But you've played.
Wasn't always like that. Wasn't always like that.
No, I mean it's not an overnight success. You've been working at this for quite some time. You've done a hell of a lot of different things. It's just everything's an overnight success if someone suddenly knows, "Oh, I know you," and they live in a small country town in the middle of nowhere. But that means you are at a different level of it. But you've been, comic book gods, classic figures in literary history, Shakespeare, all over the joint, Robot Chicken.
That was really fun.
Yeah. Well, what is the is there a filter process for your choice?
The filter is, the little voice in my head says, "Do you want to do it?" And I say, "Yeah," or "Nah." That's basically it. And it's as simple as that. Like, I made a rule to myself recently that it's a terrible metaphor, but I'll tell you anyway, which is that, it's like as if I'm on a diving board, a really high diving board, and there's a really kind of cold, deep swimming pool beneath me. And if a script is making me literally like tear my own clothes off, run up the diving board, and hurl myself up, steady. Regardless of the belly flop that I'm going to make, if I can't wait to get off that board, then I've got to do it. However, if I'm sort of being asked to go up the board and someone says, "Come on, the water's great," and I'm kind of looking down, going, "I don't know, I just don't feel like swimming today." I just got to not go anywhere near it, because most films, most acting roles, are genuinely, they're so challenging and so demanding, in the best way. And sometimes they can be physically demanding, emotionally demanding. Sometimes they're long. Sometimes you have to get up very early in the morning. And unless you just love every second of it, it's not worth it in a way.
That must be tricky when you also want to challenge yourself. And you also want to try things you haven't done before.
Absolutely. And it could be that the water is incredibly cold and dark and frightening, and that's what you need to do, so you do it.
Wow. I mean, you're a very passionate person.
I am.
I've seen quite a few interviews with you in Red Light, and you're just always happy, for God's sake. But
so
isn't
sorry.
he? He's just always happy.
Sorry.
We'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
But
should just start crying spontaneously. Just sit here and cry for 5 minutes. I won't do that. No.
With a lot of passion and putting yourself out there, being very open to how you approach life and obviously how you approach your work.
Yeah.
Does sort of open yourself up to a failure of the standard you want to be at, and also it just opens you up. A lot of people take shots at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you slay that? How do you slay that dragon, or you just don't think about it?
That's an amazing question. The thing is, I suppose if I have one fear in my life, it's a fear of wasting time. I don't want to look back at my life and think, God, I wish I'd done all of this stuff that I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't do it because I was afraid, or because someone was going to take a pot shot at me, or because I might fail, or to me, that is the greatest tragedy, is to look back and say, I wish I had, and I didn't. And I think at a certain time, I just refused to let that be a factor in anything. But I've always been a very passionate person, I think. I've always been quite honest about what I love and what I don't, I suppose, as well. And believe me, it's really easy for people to take pot shots at it, like at school. It's so easy for people to mock you, because, of course, school is a place where it's being cool wins, and being cool is being dispassionate, is not caring. And if you don't care, no one can touch you. But also, you'll never do anything, to my mind. And as regards fear goes, fear of failure, you just have to, I genuinely, whenever I sometimes feel like sort of like a smidgen of fear, it's like a little friend you just have to hug and say, I'm afraid like we're doing this and you've got no choice in the matter. And then he has a really good time. Like, I feel like it's like jumping off a cliff, and then there's like the fear person who goes, but it's really high and you shouldn't do it and you might die. And you go, fuck it, come on, we're going. And that's how you should live. That's how I live. You just cannot let fear get in the way, because then you'll never do anything.
Do you still get nervous before you perform?
Absolutely, I do. Yeah.
Do you get nervous before tonight?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But
how do you plan for being yourself?
No plans. Just do it.
Because that'd be weird. I mean, I wouldn't want to. Hey, Comic-Con, you're a Loki.
Yeah.
So Comic-Con, I mean, if you didn't know and you're under a rock, and I think everybody in this room probably knows, Tom appeared as Loki at Comic-Con in character, full character, that's a really interesting thing. So you actually were a god.
I was for a second.
Instead of playing a god, yeah.
Yeah.
But being yourself, how do you prepare for this type of show?
Don't prepare it, just be it.
Right.
Just do it. Here I am. I got nothing to hide.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Let's talk Loki.
Okay.
Let's be
Talk
honest.
more about me and fear if you want.
Yeah. Oh, we will. Loki's a weird guy. I mean, if they had God High
I should
School...
just put that on underneath the poster.
Yeah.
Thor: The Dark World. Loki's a weird guy.
He's a weird guy. I mean, in God School, when everyone else is sort of playing this spectacular versions of a handball and throwing hammers around, Loki's out the back burning ants.
Yes.
I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Or
So-
making them disappear.
Yeah. I mean, he's bad, but we actually want to save him
Thank you.
in a weird way.
Good luck with that.
Don't you think? It's. I mean, he's pure evil, but misguided and so tragic and sad.
What was that? He's just evil. He's just evil from the front.
Well,
Thanks for the sympathy. Just worked 3 films, like integrated psychology, and all I get, he's just evil. Great.
So
See?
what is he? Because you can't play something and just go, I'm just completely bad. You have to look for the good in that character.
Well, the thing is, I've always said that acting is a bit like. I'm not alone in this, actually. A lot of actors think like this. It's a sort of 3-dimensional psychology or anthropology. Like when you play a character, you're having to study the psychology of someone who is made up in a different way to you. They've had a different nurture. They have a different nature. And to me, that's the most interesting thing about the job is excavating motivation and what people really want. That's the most interesting thing about life, actually, is the answer to that question. What do you want? Like, I feel like if you went and asked anyone that question, they'd be kind of, if you just kept saying it, what do you want? You'd be like, it's a very, very difficult question to actually answer. That's the question you have to start with these characters. And Loki is someone, as I built him, that I found interesting because his villainy, his bad guy credentials, come from an emotional heartbreak. He was this sort of, if for want of a better word, if Thor is the quarterback, Loki is the artist. So he has a disposition to a kind of gifts that are suited to his mercurial intellect, his tactician's brain. He's sort of got a very curious mind. But then, as you see in the first film, he finds out that the narrative of his entire life is a lie. That he was adopted. He was the adopted son of Asgard's mortal enemy. That he was left out in the cold to die. He's not Thor's brother. He's not Odin's son. And that sense of betrayal is what kind of calcifies and hardens his heart into something very malevolent. And because I started with that, I love him. I see his pain, and he's just someone who's like tipped over into the dark side. He's far gone in his desire for vengeance and gratifying those dark instincts, which makes being malevolent a lot more fun. So that was a long answer.
It's a good one, though. I mean, a lot of actors dip into their own triggers to try and... Well, I mean, it's one... I guess you call it a technique with acting. It's like, you've got to cry now. Okay, let's think of something real sad. Yeah. How much of your inner did you bring to this character?
Oh, wow. Wow. I guess there's, on one level, there's not much of me in terms of the actual circumstances he finds himself in. I really am the son of my parents, and I have 2 sisters, and we're all like a nice family, a proper family, and it's all good, But I guess the shapes of what he inhabits are mine, So yeah, his tears are my tears, and his joy and glee is mine, and his anger is my anger, and that's. But I think any actor would tell you that it's you're filling out the mold of a character with your own stuff, except because you're wearing a mask, because you're in another costume, because you look different, then the shape of things are different, It's a really good question, because, and that's what I think makes acting so interesting, is because that's where you reach a point where it becomes, I find, a very, I feel very humble about being allowed into the profession, because I started as someone in the audience. And I remember going to see a play at the National Theatre in London, and it was about a family. It was an Ibsen play with Vanessa Redgrave and Paul Schofield. And it was about a family that was sort of crushed under the weight of its own demons. And I remember being in the audience, and all of us were strangers, you know, people sitting next to each other who didn't know each other. And at the end of the play, we were all bound together by a universal and specific recognition of the truth of what was happening on stage. And to me, that's where acting touches something great, is it doesn't matter if it's your vulnerability or your joy or your pain. If it's real, it will be recognized by the audience, and then it becomes something amazing. And you realize it's kind of a celebration of humanity in the greatest sense. You know, even if it's in a big, fun spectacle like the Marvel films, but I think that's what acting has to be, and the greatest actors, the ones I respect, I know that it's them on screen, or it's their exploration of not just their nature, but all human nature. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, anyway, that was kind of a deep answer, but...
Kenneth Branagh took you under his wing a little bit, didn't he?
What's that?
Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah, I owe him an enormous amount. Enormous amount. Kenneth Branagh is an amazing man, let it be known. I worked with him. He came to see me in a production of Shakespeare's Othello in London. And we did a couple of things after that. We did a TV show called Wallander. Great. Fans. It's a sort of dark Swedish police thriller. And we went to Sweden, did 2 seasons for 3 months at a time. And then we did a Chekhov play called Ivanov in the West End in London. And we also did a radio play of Cyrano de Bergerac. And actually, it was probably in Ivanov that I got to know him the best, because when you're on stage with someone, when you're doing live theatre, I'm sure most of you know this, but there is no hiding place. And the only security you have is the eyes of the other actor that you're on stage with. And it feels like tennis. You know, it feels like you have to return serve. There's no point in doing last night's performance. You have to listen. You have to be really on your target. And we were playing kind of antagonistic characters. He was playing the old bull, you know, a middle-aged Russian landowner who's full of self-doubt and sadness. And I played this young man for whom everything is black and white and very clear. And he sits in judgment on the older man. And they get into these big fights, ideological fights. And Ken and I had a really good time playing these characters. And then I happened to be in Los Angeles when he was casting Thor, and he invited me to audition. And he gave me a break. Like, just there's no two ways about it. He was the one who just believed in me to the extent that he could say to a big company like Marvel, like Tom will, trust me on this. Tom's got it. Tom will deliver for you. And that kind of act of generosity is very, very rare indeed, because people are scared. People are scared of betting on a horse that's never raced before. I'd had chances, and I'd tried my best, and I hadn't been allowed to start. So to have him say, "Up you come, here's your lane," was a huge gift, and I will never forget it. I wouldn't be sitting here before you today without him. So there you go.
Very cool. Very cool.